I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book Fallen to Rise, no other than Mr. Bobby Dsouza. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Dsouza, and can you please introduce yourself?
All right. Thank you so much for inviting me, Daniel. I am absolutely excited. My name is Bobby Dsouza. I'm the author of the book Fallen to Rise. The story is a story of rise of somebody who was once a construction laborer on the roads of Mumbai to somebody who's inspired 186 organization and 33,000 people face to face. It's a journey of hope, faith, and moving forward.
Interesting, Mr. Dsouza. So, what age did you realize that you're good in writing?
Uh, it is an interesting thing that initially when I thought of writing the book, everything within me told me that, Bob, I don't think so you should write. In fact, somebody very close to me told me, that why would anybody read your book? And I had doubts about myself, but I used to write articles, I used to write blogs, and then I said, I think people need to be inspired. How good I am, that comes second. People need to be inspired, and that's the bigger mission that I have, that I breathe every day, and that pushed me to writing, and the book came true.
That'd be awesome. Who are your favorite authors that influence you the most?
In fact, there are quite a number of authors that I love. Uh, I'm very passionate about self development, self help, because that's professionally that's what I'm in as well. So some authors, whose book has really impacted me. One of them is Robin Sharma, The 5 A.M. Club. I've also loved Awaken the Giant by Anthony Robbins, and then of course a lot of leadership books by John Maxwell.
If you describe their style of their writings, what is it or what are they? What are your short term and long term goals in writing?
Uh, so, when I initially started writing the book Fallen to Rise, I did not know, you know, where the book would land up. But one of my desires was that from this current book that I have written, a couple of years back, I want to ensure that it reaches as many hands as possible, whether it is through online medium or through physical ways that, I want the message of this book to inspire and help someone out there deep in any part of the world in their difficult time. This book would help. So I've written one book. I would definitely, uh, want to write another book, possibly on leadership. But currently, I'm, not thinking of writing another book because I'm focusing primarily on ensuring that this current book reaches to a lot of people, and I do the business of inspiring people one person at a time, one audience at a time, face to face.
But before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening. Of course, because you are from India, the people listening in India. I have a lot of places in India to shout out. Then, especially in Maharashtra, I get 14% audience share. Karnataka 13%. Telangana
Oh,
at
wonderful.
11%. Andhra Pradesh at 10%. National Capital Territory of Delhi at 10%. Tamil Nadu at 8%. West Bengal at
Hmm.
6%. Uttar Pradesh, Daman and Du. And I have a lot of places: Punjab, Odisha, Bihar, Chhattisgarh,
Wow.
Manipur, Goa, and a lot more. Thank you, India, for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world, like Mr. Bobby Dsouza. So
Hmm.
let's talk about your autobiography, Fallen to Rise. How did you crafted it?
When I started writing Fallen to Rise, my goal was, to share the raw story of what I experienced through the whole journey of, when I was a 15 years old boy, and, I was confused, I was lost. Uh, Financially, we were bankrupt. My family had a broken relationship. We had questions. And this is one thing that I've realized as a keynote speaker who's in the business of inspiring people. I realize, sometimes we go through the messes of our life. And when we go to the messes and the struggles and the crossroads of our life, that very moment we don't understand why is it happening. But what I've realized over the years is sometimes some of those mess that we go through actually can become a message for someone else. And when I started writing the book Fallen to Rise, I desired that all that I went through, the highs, the lows, the struggles and the victory that I faced, the laughters, the romances, the heartbreaks, and the joy. I wanted that story to reach as many people as possible. And that's how I went about crafting, the book. And it basically, because it's an autobiography, it starts one chapter at a time, which incident of my life. But along with that, after each chapter, there is a place for people to reflect. So, for example, I share a powerful story. Like one of the stories that I share is basically I was walking on the road when I was going to, inspire students in a campus, and there was a little toddler walking on the road bare feet and was crying. That very moment, I had a choice to make that I could either, just ignore him, or I could pick him up and try and find his parents. Now, I'm just giving you a little glimpse of the story. Now, in that very moment when I met that child, the easiest thing for me was to ignore the child and just mind my own business. But did I or did I not is the question. And then in there is a place called reflection where people get time, to ask themselves this question that every human every day gets opportunity to do some good. Every day we have an opportunity to display kindness, to display humility, to display compassion to people all around us. Okay, every day we get opportunities to make the most of today. The question is, are we going to ignore it and go and scroll to reels and shorts and YouTube videos, or are we actually going to make the real life matter?
So,
That's that.
Mr. D'Souza, yeah, very well said, Mr. D'Souza. So, what behind the title of your autobiography, Fallen to Rise?
Yes. So the title of the book. In fact, when I wrote the book, I was thinking, what should I write the title of the book as? One of the thoughts that came in was, a extraordinary story of an ordinary man. That was initially the thought, but then I realized that it is truly a story of rising from the ashes. In fact, there's a quote which says that there's a quote by Jim Rohn which says, when you change, everything with you changes. When you change, everything with you changes. And if you do not change, nothing around you changes. Fallen to Rise actually happened as a title because when I fell down, when I went through all the messes that I went through, there was a transformation that happened. I was humbled. My pride was crushed. And from the crushing, there was a rising that happened. And when there was a change in me, I was able to rise. But as a result, everything around me changed. So today, I'm in a much better place. I'm in a much more happier place. Uh, and one of the reasons is basically because there was a change that happened in me.
What was the writing process like for this book, Fallen to Rise?
Yes, it was an extensive writing for when I initially wrote the book. You know, it was a very raw copy. The easiest thing was to go on the computer, open a Google Doc, and start writing and use online application that could help me to correct my grammar. And then we of course found a very very professional editor who helped me to edit and add some context, and there was suggestions and there was to and fro, and basically I had to look for a publisher and then found the right one so that my book could reach a lot of people. So because writing did not come to me naturally, I really had to ask myself, you know, how do I even write it? And this is one thing that I did. Before writing the book, I intentionally chose not to read any other book of any other author because I did not want to copy anybody's, I did not want to copy anybody else in the way they write. I wanted to write uniquely in the imperfect and the raw way that I write.
Fallen to rise. What do you hope readers will take away from your book after they finish reading it?
I think there's this can take from the book. Firstly, the book, the way it is written, it's like a story. You know, it's a novel, which basically means people will open the chapter one, and they will not even realize when they reach chapter three and chapter four, because it's a novel. It's like watching a movie. Uh, so number one, it's very entertaining. In fact, somebody told me that they picked up a copy of the book, and while they were flying in the air, in in the flight itself, the person was crying and then laughing, then was shocked, was surprised, and was doing it, all of it, slowly and fine in the book. It's entertaining, it's inspiring, but here is one thing that also happens. It basically lifts up people to believe big. The greatest message that is there in the book Fallen to Rise is, it is possible. That your greatest dream, that your greatest aspiration, that something that you really crave for, that you dream about, if you feel that it is not possible, I'm a live testimony of how it is possible. If you really believe it, you dare, and then you move forward. And that's what Fallen to Rise is about. It will help you to believe in yourself and go and crush your dreams.
Definitely, people. Go for it. Believe in your dreams. Dream big. Can you share a memorable moment from your writing journey that had a significant impact on the book?
Hmm. So there are a lot of experiences that I had. Here is an interesting thing, that when I was writing this book, I used to commute and I used to travel a lot. I realized that some of the chapters I wrote it on my phone itself, on an app called Google Keep. And while I was traveling in the local, trains in Mumbai, I was just traveling and I was writing over there. And one thing that I just realized is, if you have a passion for doing something, if you want to write, you want to create a video, you want to create content, you want to do anything, actually it is not about what resources I have. A lot of time, people think that that I need to have the right time, I need to have the right contact, I need to be really 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 good at something, only then I can do it. What I've observed is, as I started writing chapter 1, chapter 2 happened. When I started writing chapter 2, chapter 3 happened. And one of the things that I've realized over here is, if you really give it a try, and if you even just try once, you'll be surprised to know how the path automatically opens up. A lot of people are waiting for somebody to put on the light. Sometimes you go to pick up your own torch, walk a little, and you'll be surprised as to how your writing journey will flow like river. So go ahead and write it. That's all.
Right, people. How important was research in creating the world or context of your book?
I think it was very, very important. Like, for example, when I was writing the book, uh, it is very easy to for me to write my story, but at the same time, I had to ask myself this one very important question: is, who are my listeners? Who are going to be the people who are my readers? And then I had to contextualize it and connect it to them. For example, my book is completely in English, because the world, mostly everybody understands English, but on purpose, for the Indian audiences, there are certain words written in Hindi and then translated into English, like only certain places. Like, for example, when there is a dialogue and when there is an actual conversation that happened, I have put it in Hindi and then I have written it in English. And the reason why I did it is this, because it will resonate, in a very real world, to the people who understand the language of Hindi. And of course, it will connect to people who understand English as well. So I think what I tried doing is, I tried connecting, number one, with the audiences in India, but then I also tried connecting it to people around the world. And I did a lot of research just to understand how I could do that.
Definitely. So, Mr. Dsouza, is there a specific scene or chapter in the book that holds special meaning to you?
Hmm. In fact, there are quite a number of chapters that really, matter to me, and they really created an impact. In fact, one of them is chapter number 1. In fact, and I'm just going to read 3 4 lines from it. It says, that it's so I'm going to read just two, three lines from this, which it's roughly around 5 a.m. The cool, gushing air conditioning in the beautiful room makes me pull my quilt closer to my body. The alarm rings. As I'm caught up in another world of deep slumber, I wake up by an inner whisper. Get up. It's time to get up. I must admit, my eyes hardly open. So this is actually the beginning of Fallen to Rise, the chapter number one, wherein it talks about I'm in this place in India called as Bangalore or Bangalore, wherein I'm invited to speak for a client. I'm invited to speak at a keynote, and I've arrived one night early, and because I have traveled, I have arrived in the hotel very late. I get up somehow at 5 a.m. in the morning, and then there is this inner whisper that comes up from my very soul, which says, get up, it's time to stand up for your purpose. And when I remove the quilt, I smile, because that day is going to be an incredible day. And it's going to be an incredible day, not because I'm going to speak, but because the purpose for which I was created, to inspire people, that is actually happening. And from there, I slowly move into talking about that today I'm inspiring so many people. I'm working with CEOs, leaders, top notch organizations. But the question is, was it always like this? And then I slowly move into talking about my story. When my mother was 25 years old, you know, and she had three children, and I was the youngest. And my father chose to disappear one day, never to come back, even today. And being a single mother in the city that never sleeps, Mumbai, she was broken, she was torn apart. And all the three children are laughing and smiling, but there is this lady, who's hiding that anguish and that pain within her heart, because somebody just deserted her, and she has no idea what to make about her life. And in moments of question, that's when your faith rises up for something bigger, something better, something higher. And she found a bigger reason to take care of her children. And she rose up in that occasion, never to get married again, but to help us to become who we are today. And that is chapter number one.
But before we go on, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our third season with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chef in one of the five-star restaurant in downtown Toronto. So please do listen. Food 101. Plus one more. Our books are out, not only one, but 12 volumes, people. Food 101, Volume 1 Basics until 12 is only the books that you need to create a delicious food, available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. Sir Bobby Dsouza, can you tell us about any symbolisms or hidden layers in your book that readers might not immediately notice?
Interesting. That's an interesting question. In fact, um, when I share my story of my heartbreak, actually, and interestingly, when people hear the story and it shows that I'm very helpless, and uh, it looks as if everything is turning around, and things are not working out. And when people read that chapter, people might just say that this looks like a doom and gloom. But when they reflect, they would realize that everybody goes through their times of downs, when they have questions, where they feel that the sun will never rise, where they feel like the rain will never stop, where people feel like the clouds will never move out. But the good part is, every dark tunnel has a light that creaks in, and every darkness has the new morning that comes in. And certain chapters, you might just feel that this looks too difficult to read, but as you start reading it, you would realize that there is a message which is specifically for you. And I believe that every reader who reads it will connect it to their own journey, but you got to dig a little deeper. That's what I would say.
Definitely. How do you think your book stand out in its genre or category?
My book falls under the category of nonfiction and also self-help. It's a mix of both. And the biggest thing that my book has, which I've realized that is not available in most books, is that you'd either have a self-help book or you would have a autobiography. My is a mixture of both. So basically, you the entire book is a story. So it's like a novel. It's very entertaining. It's very very connecting to people's life and stories. But at the same time, every chapter has got time to reflect. So you get a mix of both. So it's entertaining. You are engrossed in the book, in the story, but at the same time, you're also reflecting. So you get both the sides, and I think that is basically what stands out.
Definitely. What kind of readers do you believe will connect most with your book and why?
Uh, my experience till now is young students, who are possibly, applying for the MBAs and they are studying, you know, for them it has really resonated. I've realized that people who have been in the industry, people who work in an organization for from 5 years to 15 to 20 years, for them the book will also connect. And if you're an entrepreneur, this book could also connect with you, because I'm an entrepreneur myself, and there is an element of my journey mentioned there as well. Very raw, very real.
Definitely inspiring. So thank you, Fleet Spot, for being the number two of the 100 best book podcasts on the planet and number one in the art category. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Dsouza, what advice would you give to aspiring authors who are looking to embark on their own writing journeys?
That's a great question. What advice would I give to aspiring authors? The first thing that I would suggest is, if you want to be an aspiring author, number one, I think it is important for you to be a good reader. You got to consistently read a lot of different type of books that will help you to get a flair of, what your writing style is. Number two, before you get into writing books, I also suggest that you could, experiment with writing blogs on WordPress. And that's what I did initially, is write blogs on WordPress. You could go to LinkedIn, and you could go to Medium, and there are so many other places where you can write articles and see how people are giving you feedback. I also suggest that once you write certain things, share it to as many people as possible and get honest feedback without being defensive. When people give you feedback from that, you will know a lot. And once you start writing, that will only get better. It's almost like, you go to keep watering, or you go to fan into flame the ability and the skill that you already have. And I believe if you have the ability to write, fan into flame, nurture it, keep writing, keep making mistake, keep trying, and you'll be surprised to know that one day somebody would say, I just needed that message which you shared.
This episode is being brought to you by Primalife Organics. How has your perspective as an author evolved since the publication of Fallen to Rise?
uh, I think my perspective has changed a lot. When I wrote the book, initially I had doubts whether I could even write it. When I wrote the entire book, I was shocked that, Bob, well done, you wrote it. But then, as I reread and reread and reread the book, and I see how is it helping people, I realize this one big thing, that every person has got a great story, and somebody could benefit from that story. They could either be entertained, they could either be engaged, or they could be inspired. And I think as many people as possible should write their journey and their stories, because the world needs to hear more great stories. We are wired by stories. So I think I just realized that when I wrote one book, I realized that, Bob, well done. You should write more.
Definitely. Can you share any interesting anecdotes or behind the scenes stories related to the book creation, Fallen to Rise?
Yes, in fact, here is one. When I was writing the book, Fallen to Rise, writing the first chapter, second chapter, third chapter was like a piece of cake. It kept flowing. It just came very easily. But I realized when I reached the 10th chapter and the 11th chapter, I realized that I just got stuck. It's called as a writer's block. Some people use it, and I just got stuck. I had so much to write. I knew what to write, but somehow I just could not write. And then I started having a lot of self doubts, and my the questions that came into my mind was, is this all aimless? Is anybody going to read this? You will never get creative thoughts as to how can you write this. you know you will never be able to complete it. And those were questions that came into my mind. And I believe, whenever you try to do something great, whenever you try to do something that you've never done before, there are times when you will have questions. But one thing that I realized was, as I kept writing one paragraph at a time, and the second paragraph, and the third paragraph, I realized the universe rewards the universe rewards the perseverance of people who go ahead and keep doing it even when they do not know how or what to do. So one thing that I've realized is, when you feel like things are not working out and you feel that you're getting a writer's block, I think you should just keep writing, and you'll be surprised as to how you will get all the answers that you're looking for.
How do you see your book fitting into the broader literary landscape or cultural conventions?
I think, you know, this book is a non-fiction. It's a real story. One day I hope that it would even turn to a movie, possibly. But what I personally think is, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, this will be a journey story that people will read, people will reflect, and a lot of them will have impacts on their life. So, will it do great in regards to what sort of literature will it be? I'm not very sure, but what I do know is, every hand that it reaches, it will help them to be a better human, to chase their dreams, and to keep moving forward.
Definitely. So, Mr. Dsouza, lastly, what's next for you as an author? Do you have any upcoming projects or ideas you'd like to tease to our listeners?
Thank you for asking. As I said earlier, as I mentioned earlier, that as an author of Fallen to Rise, I wrote one book, but then I have intentionally chosen not to write any other book. The reason why is, I want to focus just on building and getting as many hands touching and reaching this book. And beyond that, I am focused on, creating content online. So as people might see, that I'm the author of the book Fallen to Rise, but I'm also a keynote speaker. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a musical motivational speaker, and I have a podcast which is called as the Bobby Dsouza Show, which is available on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, and many other places. So I create content almost every day, and it is very easy for people to find me. So uh, at the moment, at least for this year, I'm not planning to write any other book, because I'm focusing on meeting as many people as possible, inspiring people on many, many stages across the world. And basically, I want to ensure that that content that I share, whether it's through articles, through blog, through book, and through YouTube, and podcast, I want that to grow. I'm right now not planning to write the second book, at least for the next 1 year.
Okay, good luck for that. So, Mr. Dsouza, can you please invite our listeners to support Fallen to Rise?
The book Fallen to Rise is available on Amazon. It is also available on Barnes and Nobles. It's also available on Flipkart. It's also available in a Kindle version too, and a physical copy too. You could pick it up. And if you want to watch a trailer of the story of Fallen to Rise, it's available on YouTube. Just search for Bobby D'Souza Fallen to Rise. You'll find it. And you could also see my content online. I'm available. And if anybody needs help, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Bobby Dsouza, because if you support him, more books to come. Thank you for your time, Mr. Dsouza.
It's a pleasure. Such a joy catching up with you, Daniel. And thank you so much for the good work that you're doing.
Bodycount people, see you soon.